Hey everyone, what's going on here? Thank you for joining me for this live reaction. If you're going to watch it at a later time, that's cool too. It's going to be uploaded to YouTube regardless. So I'm going to be I'm commenting on a topic that has really been bugging me for a long time now. And I just want to get around to it because I saw some comments on YouTube that really just pushed me over the edge. It's from a certain video that I will get to later. I'll explain later. But I'm just like, you know what? Okay, I got to throw my 2 cents in on this. This idea that somehow, because of social media, we're somehow, especially younger people, less social. Like, this idea, to me, is just stupid. Like, this generalization, this stereotyping, this generalization, this very narrow-minded worldview, like this black and white worldview that automatically we're, especially younger people, antisocial because we use social media, or people in general because they use social media. All social media is a tool. It's a service. It's a platform to just communicate with others. So how in the world are we less social for that? Because we possibly don't spend as much time in person talking to one another. I mean, first off, how do you even know that's even true? Like, did you keep a record of tabs or something like that? And like, also the other thing is, even if we do it less, nowadays than before the internet, or heck, even before the telephone was invented, because most people that complain about this stuff were alive when telephones, but after telephones were even invented, and even after telephones became like a mainstream tool of communication, because telephones, like most people have been alive for as long as telephones have been around and have been very common. Like if you were born in 1910 or something like that, or if you grew up in the early 1900s, then it would be a different story. It'd be harder to come by and get a telephone or get access to a telephone. And there were people back there who probably complained about that. Oh, people are less social because of telephones, and same old, same old. So going back to what I said though, even if it was true that we don't talk as much in person as we did prior to the social media or to the internet, it's still not as accurate as it's still more accurate than what people are actually saying. People are actually saying things like people don't even talk to one another in person anymore. They make these extraordinary claims that are not even true. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I hear it all the time from people in real life and from people, online. Like, oh, we don't even talk to one another anymore in person, which is complete nonsense because we do still talk to people in person. And also this romanticization or this glorification of the past when it comes to interacting with people, socializing with people. This idea that we somehow don't talk to one another and we did so in the past. Like, oh, everyone's on their phones and stuff right now. Like, it's not even true to a certain extent, because people before even smartphones and before the internet were around still found ways to not talk to other people. They just had other things they could use to not talk to one another. Waiting, to see the doctor. Not everyone, guess what? Not everyone was talking to one another. They have magazines there for a reason, because people that can entertain themselves with a magazine or a newspaper. So no, clearly everyone was not just talking to each other when they got to a doctor's office or something like that, or even at a bar. Like, you think everyone was in the mood to talk to one another, to everyone at the same time? Like, maybe like someone just wanted to have a drink by themselves or something. Say what you want about that person, but maybe they just had a bad day. So first off, not everyone wants to talk to everyone, at this every minute of every day, whether it's in person or in this day and age online, or before online, the telephone. Like this whole idea about like social media and like how we're less social. I don't completely agree with that. I think, and it's ridiculous to me, because the way they present the argument is so it's so false, first off, and the second thing is it's so hyped up. It's made to be, you know, it's presented in a way that's just hyped up and like kind of exaggerated is the word I'm looking for. Like, oh, no one talks to each other anymore in person. Really? Nobody? No one. So you're telling me when you go to a restaurant and you don't talk to the waiter, or, you know, you're telling me if you don't go to the store, you don't talk to a retail employee to ask for help? And by the way, people did that too before the phone, before the internet, or before the internet. People would walk around, not even ask the, not ask the employees what's going on, and not even talk to other customers too. You know, they would just keep quiet. You know, walking around in a Walmart in the 1980s or early 90s, you think everyone was just talking to everyone else in the store? No, of course not. They're minding their own business, doing their own thing. Not everyone was just talking to one another. Just, this romanticization and glorification of a past that's not even completely 100% accurate, and a present that's not even accurate. A present day that's portrayed in a false light. This idea that, that we don't talk to each other in person is just false. And it makes me honestly question where these people get this idea from. Because I'm thinking to myself, like, it's just not true. Like, this past weekend, I was helping out on a short film, and guess what? We were all talking to each other in person, and we're all in our early 20s right here. So, yeah. And also, people in high school are talking to one another in person. Like, don't tell me they're not talking to each other in person. Give me a break. Ridiculous. And, like, okay, so a couple things. I wonder what's going on with these people, because they say these things. I think to myself, all you do is complain about it to some of these people. All you do is complain about it. Well, what are you actually doing to change that situation? Which is not even true in the first place. But the idea that no one talks to each other anymore in person. Like, what are you doing about that? All you're doing is complaining about it on some online forum or in person, and like it's so stupid. And like I've seen, and also the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I've seen videos from this guy called Nelson Sullivan back from the late 80s, early 90s. He was making videos, like vlog videos like that we would see today, but he was making them for cable television back then. And I watched one of the videos about him going to Coney Island in New York City with a bunch of other people, and people making these stupid comments like, oh, wow, look, a time when everyone was not on their smartphones. Oh, yeah, what a great time. All the people that weren't talking to their friends were just staring at the ground, staring at the ceiling, or looking at another person who was possibly sleeping on the seats in front of them, or just looking at them and not even saying anything to them. Or they had a book in their hand, or they had a newspaper in their hands. I mean, go ahead and Google old metro train photographs, and you can see there's photographs of people with newspapers in their hands. They weren't all talking to each other. No, they weren't. They were passing the time. They were distracting themselves by reading newspapers. And that still happens today. Not everyone on the metro train is on their phones. Some people actually still read books, or they look at their newspapers, or they do whatever. Like, what if they have, they might have homework to do, so they do their homework, or they have to do work for their job, so they're doing work, on the train heading to the job and stuff like that. It's just this simplification and black and white view of the world is irritating, because it's just not accurate. It's not an accurate representation of our world today. And the glorification, romanticization of the past is also not an accurate representation of that time era as well. There were definitely people back before the internet who were on the television. And here's the other thing, social media, these people who make these comments, they want to complain about the negatives, which I think are little, honestly. I think the price does not the price outweigh the cost. I think the costs are way down when it comes to social media, and the price to pay is very high, because I think we have so many more benefits because of social media. For instance, I or anyone else is able to communicate with people from around the world and not have to pay extra for that. Like imagine you had a landline or you had to use a cell phone. You know, if you want to call someone that's in the UK, you have to pay for that. You don't have to pay additionally. You don't have to pay any additional charges if you're using something like Facebook or using something like Skype or something like that. You also get to connect with other people, like I said, from around the world, and other people with different points of view. And you can also like network with people online in a way you couldn't before physically in person. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm part of filmmaking Facebook groups and other filmmaking groups, and just various other things. There was a post on one of those filmmaking Facebook groups from a woman, and in her own personal physical experiences, she was saying, career-wise, that she was not meeting a whole lot of females in the industry, and she thought like, hey, like I'm having some hard time, finding people in the industry. Are there any people out there in the industry who I can who I can interact with? And guess what? She got tons of replies, tons of them from people from all around the world, women from all around the world who work in this field, filmmaking, video making, whatever you want to call it, broadcast media, whatever. They came by the dozens. Like, oh, I'm an editor, I'm a camera operator, I'm a director, I'm a producer. I've been in the industry for this long. I've been in the industry for that long. Do you think she would have been able to get that as quickly and as efficiently as possible in person? No, not at all. She may have met like a couple people, maybe like one or two, but not so many, maybe not as many as that. Also, like unless you live in like a big city, and maybe you go to like physical networking events, which is something you should do. You should still do, by the way. You should always go meet to these job fairs and networking events in person too, because when it comes to your career, you should try and reach out to people any way possible, whether that's the internet or physically in person. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. It's not like one is completely horrible and the other one's completely great. They both have their pros and cons. Okay. So yeah, but like, in this particular situation with her, she would not have been able to do that as fast and as efficient in real life. And also, like, if she, it also depends on where you live too. Like, if you live in a small town, if you don't live in a major metropolitan area, you're probably not going to find as many people who are into the same things as you are. Being able to be online allows you to interact with other people who share the same interests as you. And that's cool. And also, a lot of the things we see from, a lot of the complaints we see about social media these days, like, is actually more the fault of actual people and not the social media platform itself. People choose to behave and say things, the way they say them online or on social media, and they may say that in real life too, or they may not. But we see, people are complaining about like, we live in divisive times and stuff like that, and they want to blame social media, but it's not social media. Come on, you really think this technology that's less than 20 years old or 15 years old is the fault of all these problems that we're having? These problems that go back decades. The problem. Some of the issues we're facing today were also similar or are the same problems we saw in the 1960s, way before the internet was even invented. So these underlying problems have existed. Social media didn't create these problems. These problems are still there, and it's people. It's the people and the way they choose to interact online. That's what's going on here with that. And like I said earlier, just a couple of seconds ago, when it comes to social media and when it comes to other technology, it's a tool. It depends on the way you use it. Like, if you choose to just, interact with people only online, then that's your decision. That's your choice. But you can also use social media and decide to use it as a way to plan events and to plan get-togethers in person. It's not like with social media, you're just bound and stuck to social media. Like it's like, oh, with Snapchat, oh, I can only interact with this person on Snapchat. It's like, no, you can't. It doesn't have to be like that. You can contact them through Snapchat and ask them if they want to meet up in person or not. And if they like you, I'm sure they will probably say yes to that, because why not? Unless they're busy. And that's the other thing too. We keep forgetting with this whole when people complain about social media making people antisocial, we keep forgetting that, people are busy. People are busy. Like maybe they don't have the time to always meet up in person. Did it ever occur to these people that they don't always have the time to meet up in person, that they can't always meet up in person? Like maybe they can only meet up through Facebook because, maybe they're busy doing, a job or something like that, and they only have like a 15-minute break, or they're in class and that's the only time they get to talk to them, or they're doing something else, basically, not everyone has time to always hang out either. They got work, or they got other things, or they have to, they've got, just there's things in people's lives, they don't always have the time to hang out. Okay. Before I wrap this up here, I want to go to the video that, inspired me to do this whole thing in the first place. So this is a video called the First Nice Sunday of 1987 in the East Village. This is from 5 and in the Avenue Project. This was this YouTube channel is a collection of all these videos by this guy named Nelson Sullivan, who, in my opinion, was a man ahead of his time when it came to videography. He made videos in the style of some YouTube bloggers, of some videos that we would see from YouTube bloggers today. And this is a guy who was making these types of videos in the late 1980s, in the early 1990s. So that's pretty awesome. And as a history buff, I love watching these kinds of videos because it's like for me, it's like a time machine. It's like a window looking into the past. But what I don't like is annoying comments like the ones that inspired me to make this kind of video. So I got the first comment here. Where did those days go? Nobody's staring at their phones, checking their emails, or playing Candy Crush, or whatever, just people having normal conversations with each other. Love it. Ugh, God. Like, really? Where did those days go? Like, what are you talking about? Like I said earlier, people have normal conversations today. They get together and they interact in person today too. And they're checking their emails. Oh no, I have a job that requires me to check my emails to contact with my coworkers, or if I'm a freelance person, like I'm a freelance, if I do freelance work, I gotta check my emails to make sure my client got back to me. Oh no, the horror of checking your emails. Or, oh my God, playing Candy Crush. Oh no, playing a little silly fun game on my phone. Oh no, the horror, the calamity of that. Like, oh my God. And also just like, again, this whole stupid, silly nonsense of this whole black and white, silly, stupid nonsense worldview. This black and white, generalizing, stereotyping, narrow-minded worldview of where do those days go? Like, what do you mean, dude? What do you mean, where do those days go? People still talk and have conversations in person. What are you talking about? You don't like, and also, since you're so adamant about talking in person to people, then why aren't you doing it? Go out and do it. All right. Really, another comment from the same a sub comment from this main comment right here. Technology, social media sometimes is not the best to feel really connected. Well, yeah. Guess what? Nothing's perfect. I know that, and I admit that. Social media is not perfect. But to just, assume to ourselves like, physically, talking to people in person is always the perfect solution to connecting with people. It's not always true, too. Like, what if you don't get along with your neighbors? What if you don't get along with the people at school? What if you're being bullied by some assholes in high school or college or grade school or whatever the hell? What if you don't feel like you really have anyone to talk to? Or what if you just feel lonely, even, whatever, nothing's perfect. Even, normal conversations, as the other person put it, is, it's not always the best way to feel connected. I mean, look, yeah, social media sometimes is not the best way. I admit, I definitely think sometimes it's been, it's nice to meet up in person and talk to people, but social media isn't always so bad either. Like, I don't understand this nonsense about demonizing social media. It's just a tool. It's a way to communicate with people, and it's a convenient way of doing it too. And also, you should, if you like to talk to people in person, you should be using social media as a way to then get them to then meet up in person, the same way you would have done with a telephone call, back before the internet was a thing, and the same thing with a telephone call, since you could still use your telephone. Um, Exactly. So this other person, exactly. So having social media is a blessing and a curse. But I do really miss the times where people were having pure conversation on the street, school, everywhere, and it's just beautiful, more meaningful, to be honest. Once again, you can still have conversations on the street, at school, everywhere. There's nothing stopping you. Who's stopping you from having conversations on the street? You can still have conversations on the street. Like, it's ridiculous. This nonsense, this idea is ridiculous. I really do miss the times where people were having pure conversation. How can you miss the times when people are still doing that? Like, I don't understand these people that say these things. Like maybe the problem isn't social media. Maybe the problem or the issue here is maybe it has something to do with you. Maybe you have some kind of issue with not talking to people in reality. Maybe some of you are shy. Maybe some of you are introverted. Maybe some of you feel entitled, like people should be talking to you for some reason, and they don't for whatever reason. Like, I don't understand what the deal here is. I think it's ridiculous. Okay, so last comment. I know everyone has become so antisocial, which is bullshit, and lost touch with actual human conversation. Once again, it's a lie. I tell people, don't text me if you are at home. For Christ's sakes, just freaking call me. That's what the damn phone is for. LOL. I miss the 80s and 90s. Boy, you gotta love the irony of that here. Everyone has become so antisocial and lost touch with actual human conversation. Be sure to give me a call if you want to hang out. Or be sure to give me a call. Like, what? Do you not know what the difference between an actual human conversation and a phone call is? Because a phone call is not actual human conversation, or at least as far as I can tell, it isn't. Like, when you say actual human conversation, I interpret that as I'm sitting right here and there's another person sitting, by me, and we're talking face to face. And I'm sure that's what most of you out there think, because last time I checked, a phone call is not an actual conversation. And also, to respond to this same comment here about phones and everyone's becoming so antisocial, yeah, there was a time, and there still is a time actually, where people talked on the phone and continue to talk on the phone for minutes and minutes and minutes on end. That didn't go away, by the way. There's been times where I've been on the phone with someone for 20 or even 30 minutes or more. So that whole notion has not even gone away yet. And I don't see you complaining about how people are antisocial for doing that. And I guarantee you, when the first telephones were being made and people were using them, I'm sure there were the older folks who lived most of their lives in the 19th century complaining like, oh, everyone's becoming so antisocial now because they have telephones and they have telegrams. And, back in my day, we had to talk to each other. We didn't have no telephones. And I know this actually is true to a certain extent, because I've seen at least a film of one person talking about this from 1929. They were interviewing older people from 1929, and the guy was saying, well, back in my day, we didn't have no telephones and telegrams. And I thought that was sweet and funny, because it just reminded me of the people today complaining about social media, saying back in my day, we didn't have no social media, no internet. Same thing, but older technology from our perspective. I feel like there's going to be something in the future when I get older and my generation is going to be doing the same thing. I've spoken with people from my generation too, who think that, who are more optimistic than I am. And they're like, oh, well, I think it's going to be different. I don't think we're going to be like, that ignorant or that not ignorant, but that like bitter about younger people or something like that, or that like that have that mentality, that attitude of, oh well, back in my day, that kind of mentality or attitude. But I don't know. I'm not that optimistic. I feel like millennials are gonna be doing the same thing. I don't have any strong convictions or beliefs to oppose that. And here's another comment. I am 70s myself. Like, he's in the 70s, and I prefer today than old days. And that's interesting to see that, actually, because it's a different perspective. If I actually grew up in the 80s, or I grew up in a time before the internet, I personally too would prefer this time period than those prior ones, because I get to communicate with more people these days. I get more options for entertainment. I get more learning options. I get knowledge. I get access to knowledge much quicker. I don't have to go to a library and read through the different letters trying to find the right book, and opening up the book and then trying to read it and trying to find the right stuff. I had to actually do that for a final essay in college. Like, our teacher forced us to actually do it the old-fashioned way before the internet, and that made me appreciate the internet a lot more, honestly. And in fact, it made me realize why all those books are there. And I'm like, oh, that's the reason why all these bookshelves are here and stuff like that in my university. But yeah, so this is just the first video about that. If you have gotten this far, I appreciate it. I did not really. I obviously didn't write any scripts or anything like that, or I didn't have any outlines. I just kind of, I went off the top of my head here. I improv per se. In the future, though, I do plan on making at least one more video or a couple more videos about this topic, and at least for one of those videos, I will be more organized on the on outlining and script and stuff like that, and having something to like read off and have like a written message and stuff like that, because I think most of us do better that way instead of improving it. And yeah, I'm guilty of like that myself. But that being said, though, I'm curious to see how people are going to respond to this. I think one thing they're going to do is one thing people are going to say is like, oh, you wouldn't understand because you didn't really grow up in a you didn't really grow up in a time where the internet wasn't a thing. And I mean, I don't think that's I get where they're coming from with something like that, but I don't think that's substantial enough of an argument, because first off, we have history. We can study history, and I am a history buff to a certain extent. I'm not the biggest of history buffs, but I have some decent knowledge of American history and Western European history from certain time periods. Those are my big areas of knowledge right there. So, yeah. Anyway, so that wraps up this video. Thank you again for watching. I'm going to close this live stream right here. And like I said, I'm going to do more topics on this because it's really aggravating to me. Just people like saying this over and over again. It gets annoying after a while because, like I said, it's not true for multiple reasons. It's not 100% true. It's only true to a certain extent, and even then, it's exaggerated to all hell. So anyway, that wraps up this video. Thank you for watching.